humbled to have an opportunity to, have my next guest is somebody who I've been following on social media for a long time, even before, I built this platform to help destigmatize, addiction and mental health, and really anchoring to leadership. And leadership it manifests in so many different ways. I've been following my next guest. She's, what I consider a female warrior, not only in this category, but in life. Her story is deep. Her story is profound. Her story is special. And so I'm honored, humbled, and grateful to have Jen Elizabeth as my next guest on the alteredSTATE platform podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm so glad it worked out and we're here. I see your face.
Totally. How you doing? You feeling good today?
I'm feeling great. Today. Yeah. Yep. I'm feeling
Jen,
good.
I as I shared, I've been following you for quite some time. I'm fascinated with the way people start their day. For me, it literally feeds into whether my day would be considered average or really good. I very seldom have bad days. How do you start your day?
So this is really super important for me in my recovery and my healing journey. Has been what I call intentional mornings. I wake up intentionally about 4 a.m. and that's just what works for me. It's a time where I love myself and I give myself that gift of time without my children awake, without anybody needing anything from me. I instantly write. So I do not get on my phone. I do not scroll through social media. I don't play the comparison game and all the shit that, the storm that comes with social media. This is my conversation with myself. It's my conversation with my universe. It's my conversation with God, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's just dumping out all the negative, self-defeating, I'm not good enough, out onto paper to make space inside my brain to fill with all the wonderful things that are in this life. If I don't do that, then I'm blocked. There is no space to fill with anything good. And I'm 9.5 years in recovery. And every single day, this is just the way that I'm wired. I wake up in a lot of fear. Mm-hmm. I wake up thinking, who am I to have written a book? Who am I to be speaking? Who am I to be helping people? And so my mornings are spent reminding myself who the F I am, that I am worthy, that I am capable, that I am living my purpose. And so I write, I drink my coffee, I do inner child meditation every morning, which is also something that's been huge in my trauma healing, where I take a picture of myself as a little girl. And I have her in my journal, or, different phases of my life that I've been through. And I close my eyes and I envision myself walking over and I pick her up off the floor and I hold her in the sunlight and I twirl her around and tell her she is love and light and beautiful. And none of that was her fault. And she does not have to carry this burden anymore. And that together we are safe now. And I do this every morning. And sometimes I do it with the woman who was living under the bridge with track marks. Sometimes I do it with my teenage self that, believed that she was worth nothing, whatever phase it is. Often though, it is that little girl, because that's where it all started from. And what's happening is, it's very strange and it sounds really hooey, and I'm not a really weird, trippy person.
Yeah.
But it is, there is papers written on this that doing this type of visualization and inner child work, I'm re-raising that little girl from the heart of the mother that I am today.
Oh, great. Love that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Jen, I work with a lot of working professionals and executives who are just trying to get back to, and really either get back to the purpose-driven life that they set for themselves, and or change their mindset, double click on the grit that they once had that they no longer have. You talked about imposter syndrome. Am I worthy? Who gives me the right to have, published this book, which is doing, really well? this whole imposter syndrome, right? Like, why me? I'm not worthy enough. Like, how long did it take you to like, and maybe you're not recovered from that. And maybe sometimes that's the fuel that keeps driving you, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long before you at least recognize it as something that it was okay to talk about? Because a lot of people that I work with, they're terrified to even admit that they have imposter syndrome, you know? And so what's your take on that?
My take on it is this, is that I believe most everything that we struggle with stems from shame.
Mm.
And that's my belief. And I believe that shame also prevents us from wanting to speak about anything. And shame thrives in silence. So the longer that you don't talk about something, the more your shame gets to bloom inside of you, and the less chance you have of overcoming it. And so, yeah, I believe that shame is the beast that most people fight. It is definitely the beast that I fight. And it is something that requires, for me at least, daily maintenance.
Mm.
It just is. And that's okay. And what's nice about when you're able to recognize something and put a name to it, like imposter syndrome. So you put a name to it, like imposter syndrome. It no longer is now a part of you. It's not something wrong with you. There's nothing bad about you. It's an actual thing
Mm-hmm.
that lots of people have.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have a name to it, and now you can attack it with different methods that are out there everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's my morning time.
Yeah.
For me, it's my writing. For me, it's getting out all that weird stuff, that the lies that I tell myself, the lies that shame tries to tell me. And I get them all out. And then by the end of my pages, I have shifted it all the way around, and I'm able to start my day. And tomorrow morning, that may happen again. It probably will. And that's okay, because I spend that time with myself. It's like going to the gym. So you go to the gym, you get muscles. And then once you get muscles, you don't stop going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're just fit for forever. No,
Totally.
it's a maintenance. Does that mean that there's something wrong with you because you have to maintain your muscle mass? No, it's just part of a routine, right? It's part of maintaining your fitness. And that could be mental fitness, spiritual fitness, physical fitness, emotional fitness, whatever. It all requires maintenance.
You know, and even to that point, it's such an excellent point. Like I work with people where they're like, you know, they're ripped, right? And they're like in shape, and you could tell that they have that category in their life so like mapped out and perfected. But when you ask them, hey, what are you doing to stay spiritually fit? Huh? I pray. Well, I go to mass or I do whatever. But what about like your mental fitness? Well, that now strikes a chord because they don't want to talk about that, right? It's this whole self-preserving, outbound kind of perception that they have to put out there, and without really letting people in. And I say, hey, the growth comes when you let people in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about it, when you tell on yourself, not in a bad way. You're not telling yourself like, hey, I'm bad at this, or I suck, or, you know, I can't believe that I'm living like this. By doing that and having a mentor or a coach or a sponsor, whoever it is, you know, you with your sober mom squad, like I'm sure that those are all things that you do, but to get people to do that sometimes is a little bit of a struggle. That leads me to my next point of like sober mom squad. I've heard about it for a long time. I know that you lead that charge, or one of the
Mm-hmm.
leaders of that charge. Walk me through that.
So, you know, one thing that I think personally in this country, and probably all countries, but mainly in the United States, for some reason, mothers are we're raising children by ourselves. You know, in other countries, entire villages, entire generations raise children together. They, you know, the grandmas, the aunts, the nieces, everyone lives together oftentimes, whether that be for financial reasons, whatever. Or villages to, you know, come together. Sometimes they breastfeed each other's children. I mean, it's a big job, right? It takes a village, like that saying is. In America, especially, we're on our own. We're not supposed to talk about if we're having a bad time, because then we get mom shamed. We're supposed to have it all together. We're supposed to love having it all together. And we're supposed to do it, you know, looking perfectly, and, you know, heaven forbid, we have addictions behind it. We're human beings. Mothers are human beings. I hate to break it to everybody. We are just regular human beings. And so it was really important, one, to have a community for moms by moms. That's a huge aspect of it is for mothers, whether that be your mom to be, you could be a bereaved mom, you could, kids who have grown up and moved out, you could be trying really hard to become a mom, whatever. And then sober moms. So obviously anyone who is in recovery realizes that how important community and connection is. I mean, it is like huge. And so, especially right now with everything being locked down with COVID, and a lot of people's support groups and meetings were closed down or are closed down, we have a lot of people suffering in silence right now. We have a lot of, especially in my niche, we have a lot of moms who are seeing all this stuff on social media and advertising that it's really funny to drink, while you're at the playground. It's really funny to drink while you're homeschooling. The bigger the glass, the funnier. Everybody's laughing, and these moms are suffering. And who else is suffering are the children. And so what it is it's just a community to come together and say, we love you. We're here for you. Whatever stage that may look like, if you're just thinking about sobriety, if you're trying to cut back, whatever it happens to be, we're supportive and we're here for you.
Right.
We have a lot of different, master classes. I do a lot of stuff with trauma work. There's stuff on relationships, finances. Everything is geared to and focused on motherhood and being a sober mom.
Great.
Yeah, it's important.
So great.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Listen, you would think it's a small niche, but it's not. It's bigger than I'm sure that you ever thought it was going to be when you started building the framework for how you're going to deploy this. So
it's huge. Yeah.
Jen, you have, I think I started this whole conversation by saying that your story's, profound and deep, a little bit dark, right? We all have darkness.
Yeah.
Minus two. Do you care to walk us through a little bit of that? I know that I've read multiple articles and seen some interviews where you said that, and I agree with this myself, you were born an alcoholic, right? Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about that journey from, when you first started really being involved heavily in your addiction to where you are today.
So when I make that statement that I was born, and born basically, I don't even call myself an addict anymore, but in that addiction phase is because everything about my addiction was about escaping who I was. Everything about my addiction was about numbing out and hiding from my reality and avoiding pain. And I've been doing that ever since I can remember. I was born into pain is probably the most simple way to put it. Mm-hmm. I was born into pain that didn't belong to me. It was my parents' pain. Yeah. It was my family's pain. But, the only thing I could figure out how to do as a little kid was to learn how to carry it. That's all we can do, right? We don't have no concept. We have no concept of anything. And so I learned to carry pain very, very early on, and to, try to alleviate that pain in any way possible. So, I spent a lot of time, begging for people to love me, trying to be something that I wasn't. I wanted my mom to love me. And then, I was just starving for affection. And then, fast forward 2 years when I was 5, an elder from the church, was not a church, it was disbanded as a religious cult. So I don't want to say it was a church, but he called me in his office and started showing me attention. And I was, like I said, starving for that love and for someone to tell me that I mattered and that I was special and to color with me. And, that's how a lot of times, most of the time, abusers groom children, is by giving that attention. And we feel really happy and we're really excited and we feel special. And then, over time, it just got really scary and confusing. And, he ended up, molesting me until I was 10. And I never told anybody. See, that's the secrets are worse than the actual secret you're keeping, keeping the secrets. The fact that I didn't tell anybody made me feel like I was a participant. And so in feeling like a participant, I felt a lot of shame and really bad about myself and hated myself, like hated myself. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I mean, I would close my eyes when I brushed my hair. It was that much. It was just so much for me to carry. And so when I was 12, I found alcohol. And alcohol felt like the answer to every question I ever had about why I felt the way I felt about who I was. It just silenced that beast of shame inside of me. And so from 12 until I was 34, which is when I got sober, you know, I searched any substance I could find that would take away that shame, that would help me to not look at my childhood. I just couldn't even go there. I couldn't even look that direction. And so, you know, I ended up, you know, a heroin and meth user. I was homeless and I lived under bridges and slept in cars and was losing my teeth. I had abscesses and track marks all over my body. I ate from garbage cans. I mean, the whole thing. And a lot of people would, you know, think, well, that's pretty bad, right? That's pretty awful. Well, it's not as awful as facing my trauma. It did not feel as awful or as scary as having to look at my childhood. I was willing to die to avoid that childhood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where did that epiphany come? Where did that, like the epiphany to at least embrace it, right? There has to be somebody, maybe somebody came into your life that helped you.
Well, when I ended up in prison, and prison was not, I don't think prison is a place for rehabilitation. But when I was in prison, I had enough time. I mean, I did use and drink in prison. Believe it or not, there's lots of drugs and alcohol in prison. But it's not as plentiful as on the streets, I guess. So I had some time to clear the fog a little bit. And I had a moment that I write about in my book that I call it a divine intervention. And you know, growing up in a cult and with a lot of religious trauma, I'm very careful with not to force anyone to believe in anything. But it was something big happened to me that day in prison, and all the sound like left the room for a minute. And suddenly it just hit me that this was going to be the sum total of my life until my life was taken away if I didn't do something. You know, I was 34. I didn't own a pair of pants. I had nothing. No hope, no nothing. And I had this little tiny spark. I mean, it was really tiny, and tiny sparks are so powerful. And this is why I'm so adamant about placing tiny sparks of hope and kindness into people, because those tiny sparks grow to be wildfires. I had this tiny spark that maybe, just maybe, I was worth more than overdosing in a riverbed as a transient.
Wow.
And that's where my, you know, sobriety started. And it was, I went, you know, to traditional recovery, and, you know, I love all recovery paths. But about 2 years into my recovery, I started really suffering with a lot of pain. A lot of my childhood was coming back. Everything I've been running from, it does not leave you. It's there.
Yeah.
And I remember I got on the computer and I Googled, I think I Googled either child abuse or sexual abuse. I had never said that word abuse before. I'd never even contemplated or thought that maybe somebody had done something to me. Maybe it wasn't my fault, or maybe it wasn't, you know. And my life completely changed that night. It was just as powerful as when I got sober for me, for someone with as much trauma. And what I found was communities of people, link after link after link, talking openly about the things that I thought I could never share with anybody, and talking about how they're feeling. And I was like, that's me. Wait a minute. Maybe there's not something wrong with me. Maybe it makes sense because something happened to me. And that changed my entire recovery direction. I mean, I think I was headed down a really scary road of possibly going back.
Yeah. It's funny, like, oftentimes you hear people say how bad the internet is, right? But like, even for me, like, even for like how I search for answers,
Mhm.
it's not only like the internet is more than just Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, right? For you, it gave you a platform to heal, communicate,
Yep.
become tribal with another group of people that experience the same things. And so I love that story. Um, Jen, I mean, you and I have talked before about, traditional formats and frameworks for recovery and AA. And, I subscribe to AA. I also say it's not for everybody. There's multiple modalities for recovery. What's your take on all of this stuff?
So I started off in the 12 steps, and I love the 12 steps. I do love that fellowship. I believed at one time it was the only way. And I think that it was out of fear mainly. I was afraid if anybody drifted off or felt that they, weren't doing well there, that, they're going to, if you're not doing well here, you're going to relapse. Like, you can't leave because you're going to be a dry drunk or whatever we say, And when I had that moment on the internet and I really realized that my recovery is also a mental health recovery, that mental health is really important, and that the 12 steps are not designed to be, they are not therapists, that's not trauma informed, and that's totally okay. It's not saying anything bad about the 12 steps. That's like going to a therapist expecting them to, help you lose weight. I mean, it's like, it's totally fine.
I got you. Totally.
I'm very,
or even going to a therapist, helping them, control your drinking. Well, they're not an addict or a former addict,
right,
or they don't know how to navigate that space. So they're not the person to help you.
The thing is that we should always seek out whatever it is that's available to us to help us be more and more free every day. I'm constantly seeking, even today at 9.5 years in recovery, I'm still seeking. If I see something, whether it be on the internet or somebody else is doing, and I look into it and I go, whoa, I never knew about breath work, right? Or, something like that. And like, breath work is amazing.
Totally.
And if I were to have kept myself in this box of the only thing I need to do is NA or AA or smart recovery, or whatever it is, that's the only thing I need to do, and I should be completely transformed, then either A, I'm most likely going to relapse, or B, I'm not going to live as beautiful of a life as that is possible for me. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as good as it gets in recovery. And a lot of people live in, this is as good as it's going to get. Mm-hmm. And they don't even realize it. They don't even realize it because they're not drinking and using, which is it's wonderful. Totally. But they're not drinking and using. They're not on the streets, they're paying their bills. They, pay their taxes. There's all these wonderful things, but they have anxiety. They have depression. They have interpersonal relationship problems. They have sexual issues, all these different things. And they think, well, this is just as good as it gets because I'm not drinking and using now. Like, for me, being sober, it was a very pivotal moment for me to be able to transform even further. But sobriety is not the end game to this deal.
So good.
That's what I believe. Yeah.
I was speaking to my brother yesterday about this exactly. He was just, he's not one of us, and I guess that's a phrase that we use, right?
Right.
But he was just saying, like, hey, walk me through the people that you help. And I said, well, a lot of the people, like, either they were an addict and now they're in recovery and they're stuck in recovery. They think that this is their life. Yep. And it's like they're 1 degree of separation from where they came from. That's too close, in my opinion. You need to continue to evolve and really grow and leave it behind you. And so to that point, it's like now you're sober, like, amazing, high five, let's hug this out. Okay, what's next? Because you're not staying here. If you want a chance, if you want 9.5 years like yourself,
right?
If you want multiple years like myself,
right,
you need to continue the deal. It's less, and it becomes less about not picking up, and it becomes a lot more about giving back, service, being selfless, all of the things that really feed the soul more than just a drink or a drug.
It's so true. When I first got here, I thought that drugs and alcohol were my problem. Right? And almost everybody that really gets recovery laughs at that because it's hilarious, right?
Totally. Yeah.
I thought that was the problem because that's why I'm going to jail, and that's why, my teeth are falling out, and that's why everybody looks at me funny because I'm, quote unquote, junkie or whatever they call me. So that's the problem. So if we could just figure out how to remove those, then I'll be fixed, right? I'm just going to be like, I was so wrong because the drugs and alcohol are just a coping skill. It was just a very small part to a much larger picture, and I really think it's important. Like when we talk about stigma, there's two stigmas. There's stigma inside the recovery community and stigma outside. But when we're talking about the stigma inside the recovery or outside the recovery community, I really want to take this big, nasty umbrella off the big A addiction word. It's the same thing as spending way too much money on Amazon that you can't afford. It's the same thing as watching porn all night. It's the same thing as eating, excessive amounts and you can't stop it. It's the same. It's just a coping skill. That's it. I just want to make it simple and like light, because like you're literally going to have a really hard time finding someone who has not been touched with addiction, either themselves, their child, their neighbor, their boss's son OD'd. In this day, there's so much pain. And as long as there's pain and there is ways to alleviate that pain, even if those happen to maybe cause harmful effects, we will always have addiction, period. So that's why, I love harm reduction, because I am not here to eradicate addiction. I'm here to help people live the best life that they can live. I love sobriety. For me, sobriety has been key to me being able to heal from trauma. I don't know if I would be able to do it as fully as I have if I were still using at all. However, I do not believe I'm superior. And I do not believe that people that still use drugs, even if they are not willing right now to get sober or ever, that they should be discarded or pushed out.
No.
I used to believe as long as you are willing to get sober, I am willing to care for you. That's kind of what we're taught in traditional recovery path. Today, I'm saying I'm willing to care for you now. No attachments, regardless of what your plans are for the future, because you're worthy of life. Period. Great. The end.
Awesome.
Silence.
Awesome.
Right?
I mean, yeah, totally. Yeah. There's nothing else to add to that.
There isn't. There just isn't. You're just worthy of life. That's all. I can end this whole thing now.
your persona on social and just even live, it just fits, right? Like the way you see somebody on social, and then when you talk to them, it just fits. Okay. You carry yourself with this, there's power behind you, right? Talk to me a little bit about this red hair. I've been following you for a long time, and it's always with the red hair. Give me, where did this start? Looks great. I just want to understand where it comes from.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I do purple roots with orange tips. Sometimes I do pink. I don't know. Maybe it's like the color of my soul. I don't know what, somebody told me that on another podcast one time, and I go, God, it really is. I'm on fire, man.
Cool.
I'm on fire just for my own healing. I'm on fire to see other people's healing. I'm on fire to see the sparks light, sparks that the average person does not celebrate. They should be celebrated. Somebody who's, just finally speaking words, they've never spoken before is a huge, huge celebration. We always want to push them, like, well, that's not big enough, or that's not good enough, or, we're enabling or whatever. I celebrate everything for people. Anything somebody is doing to love themselves just a little bit more is a big celebration for me. And I support. So maybe my hair is like, it's a celebration hair. It's like it's a party on my head.
Love it. Jen, you have a daughter, right?
I do. A 3-year-old. Yeah.
A 3-year-old, and
and
you're
a 7-year-old
married.
son.
Without getting too details, your husband's in recovery as well.
Yeah, so I am not married, but I am engaged.
Cool.
And he is 13 years in recovery. Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah. And I have a 7-year-old son, a 3-year-old daughter, no more kids. No,
Yeah, me too. Yeah, done.
plenty.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
good
yeah,
for
it's a
you.
miracle, it's really for both of us to have this time. I mean, it's just wish neither of us should be here. It makes no logical sense. I really can't wrap my brain around like how I made it here today, but I'm so grateful that I have. And so since I have, it's really important for me to use each day to the fullest that I can use it. And sometimes I share about hard stuff. Not every day is I'm on fire for like, but it's important to share about, like you were talking about earlier, to speak about the things that we struggle with so that other people know that they're not alone.
Totally.
And it takes the power out. So yeah, so sometimes I do share about some hard stuff that a lot of people don't really want to look at, but we need to look at it because it's happening.
Jen, just wanted to thank you as we come to a close. Just a sincere thank you for your time, the level of knowledge and how deep it is, and just how real it is. A lot of people have the ability to communicate. You have that, but very few people have the ability to connect, right? And I think that you do that, both of those, at a high level. And so I just wanted to thank you for your time, your consideration. I look forward to continued collaboration between Sober Moms. What is it? Tell me again.
Sober Mom Squad.
Sober Mom Squad. Can you kind of, highlight that so that any subscribers or listeners, if they want to, double tap on that and get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Yeah. So if you want to get in contact with me personally, I'm everywhere on social media as Resurrection with the K_of_me. I'm all over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, wherever I am able to spread some sparks of hope, I'm there. Also, I have a website, resurrectionofme.com. The Sober Mom Squad is sobermomsquad.com. You can go on there. We have lots of options, lots of stuff. You don't have to be sober yet. You could just be curious and just want to check it out. If you want to sit quietly with, out saying a word and just, that's how I started my healing journey, was just by being really quiet and listening and absorbing. So yeah.
Awesome. Jen, thank you again. We'll continue collaborating, sharing love for one another. So thank you for all you do for me and for the community.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Anytime.